Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video we're going to be going over some information that was revealed from an interview that our Final Fantasy XIV Reddit had with Naoki Yoshida this last weekend at PAX East. Now, I want to thank the Reddit community and the Reddit mods for asking these questions and getting Yoshi P to answer them, because there is some really important stuff. Obviously, he gives us that whole spiel a few times. Oh, we can't go into it, we got to keep it a secret for now. But this first question in particular, thank you for getting an answer out of him for it, especially Resefin Ine. If we scroll down to the very bottom, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing Ine's or Ine since it's EA. Thank you specifically for holding this this interview. I'm sure that all of you convened in order to decide the questions. But the very first question that comes out of this interview, one of the biggest questions going around with players regarding endgame rating in Heavensward is typically in a lot of MMOs when an expansion comes out, developers will give players a week or two to level up before they open up endgame content. Will Alexander be gated by any period of time after the expansion opens to give players a chance to level without panicking? This has been a big question. People have been wondering, is Alexander going to be available day one from when Heavensward goes live? We have our answer. There is going to be a 2-week gap before Alexander is opened up to everyone. So this means you can take 2 weeks to level up all your characters, get your crafting classes ready, try out the new jobs, complete the story, go really at your own pace without worried about being left behind. Now, 2 weeks for me, I'm okay with. I'm not a fan of like a 3 or 4 week schedule, because to me, it seems like you're almost trying to force people to extend their subscriptions if you wait a full month after the expansion drops to release a patch. So 2 weeks to me, it's a perfect amount of time. It's 2 weeks to see how much you enjoy Heavensward's actual content, and then 2 weeks to see if you're really ready to get into that endgame. And if you're not, then that means you just have even more time to decide. So he goes into a whole spiel about why they want to do that, but the bottom line is there will be we do plan to have a 2-week gap before we open up the content. I'm a fan of this because it means, guess what? I get to take those 2 weeks to stream for you guys, to go over all the story aspects, to make a bunch of videos. I, as a YouTuber, can keep up to date and still be that hardcore raider that I want to be. I'm so happy for this 2-week gap. I'm glad it's only a 2-week gap. But that wasn't the only question. They really went all out. I was really happy with this Reddit interview. So they asked about easing players into endgame content in Heavensward, and a lot of the answers here refer back to Alexander having 2 difficulties, normal versus hard, where Alexander normal is slightly easier than the Binding Coil of Bahamut, and Alexander hard is slightly harder than the Binding Coil of Bahamut. Also, the question about having cooldowns automatically reset after wiping when you're doing endgame raiding. They said they're thinking about it, but they're not really sure. If they do it, they haven't finalized the time. So I could see why they maybe wouldn't want to do that, but I would, as somebody who raids and who has gone through the progression, it would be nice a little bit. But we'll see what they do with that. Also, they asked if the new jobs are being implemented to address any sort of balancing issues in Endgame, and they just said they're really just looking to broaden the amount of roles that you're able to do in Final Fantasy XIV, or the ways to play the game. And you know, for example, with the 3 new jobs we're adding, how they play differs a lot from the existing 10 jobs we have, and that's how it's intended to be made. With Heavensward, we are raising a level cap, so you'll be learning more skills, and you'll be reassessing what skills you have in a rotation. So we hope that players try it out to see what fits with your playstyle and what would be your best choice, or what you'd want to use as a player. So not just there to fix balancing issues. I mean, I kind of expected that anyway, but I'm interested to see these new jobs. It's not like they're going to level 50 and then they have new skills after 60. Everything 1 to 60 is new. So there's going to be more to learn from the start with them, and that is what I'm really looking forward to. So they also asked about expanding inventory spaces, specifically because we're getting these new jobs. Are the armory chests going to be expanded in any way? Specifically referencing Final Fantasy XI and the way they had the Gobby Bag quests and the increased inventory in your home space. And Yoshi P has mentioned this before, where the way they write data to the server to prevent data loss in the case of a rollback is that data is saved every 15 seconds. So because it's saved so often, it actually makes it so that it's difficult to add things like new inventory space, or it is a very time-consuming thing to do. So they say they are looking. They're not saying it's impossible, but they have to really nail down how they're going to do this. So they had basically nothing set in stone yet, but they do mention the expanded retainer capabilities. You know, there's not many people want to pay for the extra retainers, but they do mention a few other things here. So I definitely, if you're interested in that, take a read. Now, this was another big one. Now, there was an interview, I think a day or two ago also, where Yoshi P commented about the new jobs and what level they're going to be starting out as. Now, I guess that they might start at level 50, but I've since rescinded that idea. I think level 50 is way too high up to start. Level 30 to me seems like the perfect place for these new jobs to start. Despite the fact they have no base classes, it's just where jobs have always started in this game, so it makes sense to me, especially because Korthus, you know, where Ishgard is located, is about a level 35-ish area. So I'm curious to see, though, because based on what we learned, there may be some new moderate level areas coming in Heavensward as well. We don't know that for sure, but we'll have to wait and see. And he just says right at the bottom here, in terms of jobs, we don't start at level 1. It literally says that right at the very end, but he goes into a whole explanation about Heavensward characters. Now, there's also an editor's note. This question will read a bit difficult because it was mistranslated at first, but thanks to Matt Hilton, was corrected. I've included both answers because I think they both provide worthwhile information. So he really mentions how they don't want to start characters at level 50. The game's only been out for a year and a half. It's not like WoW where they sell level 90 characters or you can start a character at a higher level. It's too early in its development cycle or in the MMO's life cycle to really do that. So expect to have to go back as a new character still to do the level 1 through 50 experience, but the newer jobs are in a higher level area. So pretty much in terms of jobs, we don't start at level 1. That's what it says. So that's what we'll have to see if it ends up starting at 30 or somewhere else. So specifically, it says specifics numbers, just definitely not at level 1. We're going to keep it a secret as long as we can. You guys, you love doing that so much, and you're really good at it until some people get their hands on certain information. So then he talks about Final Coil, Bahamut, and, you know, them asking, oh, it was cleared quickly and thought it was really easy. What did you learn? Yoshi P says he doesn't think it was the easiest, but they did specifically make turns 10 and 11 easier than turns 1 and 2 or turns 6 and 7, for reference. Some might say turn 7. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. But then he references back to Alexander Normal and Hard and the difficulty differences. We won't get into all that. Now, this was a big one. People have been wondering how Dark Knight is going to work. It's a tank. We all know that they've always been kind of a tanky DPS that sacrifices HP in the previous games. That's been a big thing for them, is sacrificing HP, and it's asked here. So right at the start, in history of Final Fantasy series, the Dark Knight job has typically been more of a DPS job. Now, this is actually a question from RP Gamer, or RPG Gamer, however you want to ask it. So, definitely, thank you also to them on top of the Reddit community. So, and Yoshi Peach is like, no, they're not typically a DPS job, and everyone starts laughing. He speaks about the sacrificing of the HP mechanic. They say they haven't even decided if they're going to do that yet. Right now, the way the MP works, but you don't just use MP to cast spells. You can use it to strategically boost your attack or boost your defense, and it's going to be about maintaining that balance of attack versus defense. It's not as clear-cut as, hey, I'm a tank, I take damage, that's what all my abilities help me do. Seems very similar to the warrior style, except that the MP, we don't know how it's going to play that role. So they haven't really decided. As a tank, you know, sacrificing HP is a weird thing. I could see how it would work, but they haven't nailed it down yet, so one of the biggest things about Dark Knights may not even exist. I don't know how I feel about that in particular. I am very much for preserving the Dark Knight's HP mechanics, so we'll wait for more. I got nothing else to say about that one. Also, you won't have a scythe. Just bottom line, since apparently, you know, people really requested scythes. You won't have a scythe. You'll have a sword. They also mentioned the Master Fishing Ring giving GP, and that they're going to be looking to actually make GP useful on fishers later. RP Gamer also asked a question about adding 4-man versions of the new Primal battles, and Yoshi P prefers 8 people, since he says he's a bit more of a hardcore player. They say they actually usually develop the extreme version first and then take things away to develop the easier versions. So they may consider doing the mid-level, like the story mode versions of these primals, as he seems to allude to here, because of the level cap being raised and the fact we're introducing new jobs. There may be, okay, never mind. Just people who aren't as familiar with the way that the primal system works. So they are considering doing a 4-man version, but for the extremes, you can definitely expect an 8-person battle. He says itself, it'll be very tough. We'll see about that, Yoshi. So also ask about add-ons. Reddit, thank you so much. Says that the main reason that they're taking so long is because of the way they do the patch cycle every 3 months and how much effort they have to put into to keep that patch cycle going. It makes these side projects take a really, really long time. So we may see Heavensward, sometime after Heavensward, a little bit after, they may show us like a picture or something, a visual reference or a screen layout of some sort. That's not a lot to go off of, but at least they haven't forgotten about it. Doesn't sound like it's coming anytime soon for anyone who's wondering that. Anyway, I thought this was great what RP Gamer asked. What was the inspiration behind Astrologian? Apparently, they were originally going to give Astrologians guns. I guessed a long time ago we were going to have a gun healer. Apparently they were going to do chemist originally. Item wielder was the loose translation, but for us it would have been called the chemist, you know, throwing potions at, you know, at people to heal them or buff them and whatnot. They eventually landed with the Astrologians because of their theme in Korthus and Ishgard, and also they eventually just decided the gun didn't fit, so they went with the cards, they went with the Star Globe instead. Also, obviously, Astrologian was a part of Tactics as well, so apparently it was a lot of very debated ideas went back and forth with the Astrologian. So they really hope that everyone enjoys it. They think it's a really cool idea, and, well, I'm looking forward to it as well. I love this question. Reddit. Seriously, I've said it like 3 times. I love you for asking this question. Are there any plans or thoughts on making any use for elemental materia? And he's like, I'm torn on that. Like, he understands how utterly useless those things are outside of speeding up the spirit bond process at this point. He says maybe sometime in the 3.x patch series they'll incorporate something that'll make it useful. And also something about the, you know, we're also considering for legacy players who have the old cracked materia. We're doing away with that system eventually, so I'd keep an eye out for that one, because if they ever decide they just want to stop letting you keep those cracked materia, I know people that are still hanging on to 2-3 stacks of cracked materia back from 1.0. So keep your eye out for news about that, please. Also, will any future jobs be added via patch like Ninja was? The development team says it's very stressful to try and do that, but Yoshi P and the team also loved how much people enjoyed getting a new job outside of an expansion. So they're kind of weighing their options here. We may or may not see it. I know a lot of people want Samurai before 4.0, but we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see on that one. Anything about free company crafting? This is a huge read. I'm not going to go over it. It's just that at the release of Heavensward, there will be free company crafting. There's a workshop that you're going to have to build up in your basement. There's 2 categories. There's a lot of things. He goes into a whole big explanation here. You know, he talks about the airship, you know, the 4 major parts which will go into your free company ship. It's a whole huge thing. I highly recommend reading it for yourself. We just don't want to go super crazy into this. Although one thing I do want to say is once you're able to go out and explore and travel and find those different areas in the sky, you may find that some of these areas may have notorious hardcore monsters that you can't beat and just end up defeated and having to come back. Or you may find that other free companies have already visited and trashed it and made a mess of it. This has to do with what you're going to be able to do with the free company airships, and it is great. There are uncharted areas you will be able to visit with these free company airships. Add combat capabilities so you can have a battleship. These all sound great. I want to see them in practice, but being able to take our airship into uncharted areas in the skies that we can't reach otherwise, finding these super difficult monsters and these, it's almost like finding random overworld raid instances, it sounds like. Well, we'll see how it pans out. You know, that all sounds good and great and whatever. I want to see it in practice. You know, we've heard a lot of promises about things. Ethereal Wheel was the last time we heard about free company crafting, and that was a disgrace to even mention. Anyway, definitely recommend reading that. And the last question was, will the new level 60 armor be available via job quest or via grinding? It says it won't be anything like the Zodiac weapon. You won't have to grind for anything like that, but they're going to keep the rest of that a secret for now. The first goal you should have is to reach the level cap, and then with the introduction of Alexander Normal and Hard, and the item levels, now this is a big thing. The item levels of those items between the 2 difficulty levels will be much wider than anything in A Realm Reborn. That immediately implies that, yes, Alexander Normal will have loot. I thought it's going to have loot. If it's like Coil with Echo, that still deserves loot. That doesn't deserve to be a lootless piece of content. So, but he's also saying that there's going to be a wide gap between normal and hard mode, so that you literally have to gear up in normal before you can go and tackle hard mode. I want to see how it all pans out. These are great questions. RP Gamer, Reddit, thank you so much. This is one of the best interviews I've seen in a long time with Yoshi P. Real questions that we wanted answered. Thank you so much. Everybody, be sure to go thank Reddit for these awesome questions, even if you don't post there very often. And also, just be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section of the video below. I'm really excited to keep getting more news segments like these over the next few months. We got 3 months until the expansion. Gotta hold out somehow. But anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see everyone next time. Until then, take care.